Hello and welcome to Forward Boldly. I'm your host, Christine Niles. Feminism is one of the most destructive forces in modern history. When it first came out into force in the 20th century, early 20th century, it promised women an illusion. It promised women true equality. It also promised women they could have it all, that they could have family, career, marriage, children, but also a successful career without sacrificing any aspect of either one. And instead, it has turned out to be incredibly harmful to women, to sell this myth, to sell this illusion that that women can be exactly like men, and that equality means doing all the exact same things as men, just as well as men can do them. That's not true. It's one of the biggest lies perpetuated today, and yet this myth of feminism is still being sold by government officials, Hollywood celebrities, school teachers, other educators, college campuses, everywhere in society. But like I said, one of the most destructive forces in modern history. So what is authentic femininity? What is it? And how do we, as Christian women, live it out? I'm going to look into that in this episode of Forward Boldly. But before we do so, just a reminder, if you are buying or selling a home, I encourage you to look at realestateforlife.org. It is a real estate company that is pro-life. It will pair you with a faith-based realtor who shares your values, who will seek the best price possible for your home. And the best part is that he will give a cut of his commission to the pro-life charity of your choice. I've used it twice, once for selling my home, once for buying my home. Both experiences were excellent, were wonderful. And the best part was that a cut of their commission was given to the charity of my choice. In my case, it was Church Militant, but of course you can choose any pro-life charity that you would like. So to learn more, go to realestateforlife.org. That is realestateforlife.org. So it is the Feast of the Assumption, and we honor Our Lady on this feast day, one of the highest Marian feast days in the church, the day that we celebrate her assumption into heaven. She is the perfect woman. She perfectly models authentic femininity, and we can learn so much from Mary. But we have so many misconceptions and misunderstandings about Mary. Very often we approach her as sort of this porcelain statue standing in churches, just completely untouchable and totally unrelatable. Couldn't be further from the truth. She is closer to your heart in her maternal love for you than the best earthly mother could possibly be. She loves you more profoundly and more intimately than the best earthly mother could possibly love you. And there's so much that we can learn from Mary, and she's a very healing force for those of us out there who may have grown up with troubled relationships with your mother. Turn to Our Lady. She will help heal you, and she will help teach you true maternity, true motherly care. We'll look into all of that in just a little bit. But before we do so, I want to draw your attention to, as far as I'm concerned, the very best book ever written on authentic femininity. It's authored by Dr. Alice von Hildebrand. It's titled The Privilege of Being a Woman. I think this should be mandatory reading for every girl out there, every girl and every woman. The Privilege of Being a Woman. Beautiful book from front to back. It's short, only 108 pages, and written by the great Dr. Alice von Hildebrand. She was born in 1923. She, of course, is the widow of the Catholic philosopher Dietrich von Hildebrand, who actually escaped the Nazis, came to the U.S. Alice was a professor of philosophy in New York City for 40 years. Brilliant woman, published many wonderful books on morality, on marriage, on femininity, on feminism. She called herself the anti-feminist. She hated radical feminism and the ways that it destroyed authentic femininity. Now, during her days as a philosophy professor, she routinely, every year, got the highest scores from her students as the best teacher, hands down. And yet, because this was in the earlier part of the 20th century, mid-20th century, she was facing, very, very much so, she was a minority. She was a minority as far as a woman, also in the minority as far as a Catholic. So she did face some anti-Catholic bigotry while she was there, but she also faced authentic misogyny in the sense that she was given lower classes than she should have been. She wasn't promoted as she should have been. I don't think she was ever tenured, which was terrible considering her track record. She should have been tenured, and yet that position was being given to male staff and not to her. So she did experience genuine misogyny. And she acknowledged that in, the 20th century and past ages, there has been some abuse of male power, which is why feminism cropped up. It was backlash to some of the abuse and some of the genuine, disrespect and mistreatment that some of the women were experiencing. The problem is that feminism is not the solution. It offers all the wrong solutions. And so in privilege of being a woman, she tries to rectify that, tries to offer the right solutions in an authentically Catholic way. Absolutely wonderful book. But this is one quote from the book. She says, quote, "Unwittingly, the feminists acknowledge the superiority of the male sex by wishing to become like men." Isn't that ironic that women have, in their desire to be just like men, to do everything that a man can do as far as career and fame and success and all of that money, they are implicitly acknowledging that simply being a woman, a wife, a homemaker, and all the roles that are beautiful and authentically feminine they're inferior to being a man. And so it's like this vicious cycle. They're just confirming their own fears about women being inferior. And they're reaching for this impossible standard of, I will be equal in all ways to men in all things. It's impossible. That's not how God made us. I want to also draw your attention to a beautiful, very insightful letter written by then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who was head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. He later became, of course, Pope Benedict. But this is a 2004 document that he issued, and it's titled Letter to the Bishops of the Catholic Church on the Collaboration of Men and Women in the Church and in the World. It's really not a very long document. I suggest that you please read it for those who are interested truly in an authentically feminine way of relating in the world and in the church. Some very wonderful insights in this. But here's one quote. He says, "Faced with the abuse of power, the answer for women is to seek power. This process leads to opposition between men and women, in which the identity and role of one are emphasized to the disadvantage of the other, leading to harmful confusion regarding the human person, which has its most immediate and lethal effects in the structure of the family." A lot to unpack in that quote, but that's very true. Women, in their backlash to abuse of power from men, because there has been some abuse of power, they wrongly try to seek power and they try to dominate men, which is leading to so much of the backlash we see today. We see it now. I do see, a rise in what is considered authentically toxic masculinity. I have seen it. My friends have seen it, and it's worrying. It is a backlash against all the feminism, that's been going on now for decades. Men getting very angry, rightfully so, at the way that men are depicted in society. For instance, you look at movies. Men are very usually depicted as these bumbling, incompetent idiots, whereas the women are the ones who are smart. They're the ones who know what to do, and they're kind of the true leaders. Or you see these ridiculous action films where a 100-pound woman is able to take down 6 men at the same time and knock them all out. Look, that's never going to happen in real life, ever. And yet Hollywood perpetuates this ridiculous notion of, women can do everything that a man can do. With the problem being that if you can't do everything a man can do, therefore you are inferior and you're worthless. That is not the message of Christ. That has never been the message of Christ. And that is fundamentally the massive flaw in feminism. Seeking your worth, seeking self-esteem in what you can do externally, what I can accomplish, in the secular realm, in the worldly view of things. And that is absolutely not at all what God intended or where we find our worth. Let me make very clear, as far as this concept of equality of the sexes, we are each equal, men and women, in dignity and worth in the eyes of God. Absolutely. The church has always taught that. That's clear throughout Scripture. We're equal in worth and dignity in the eyes of God. We are not, however, equal in roles. We're not equal in abilities. This is very obvious to anybody who's honest. But of course, those who want to perpetuate this myth, they'll say, oh, no, women can do anything a man can do. No, that's not true. And that's fine. That is okay. It's all right to have those differences. And it's all right. One side has greater strengths than the other, just like the other side has greater strengths than the other. And that's actually a very beautiful thing. Men and women complement each other in beautiful ways. And when men and women work together in the way that God intended, it's actually quite beautiful. It is beautiful. But the problem is we don't work together in the ways that we are meant to. And instead, there's opposition when there should be complementarity and working together. We'll be right back with the show, but I'd like to take a moment to encourage you to sign up for a premium subscription if you haven't already. It's only $10 a month, which is a really rock bottom price, and it gets you thousands of hours of content on everything across the board: theology, philosophy, apologetics, history, everything. We have things for little children. We have things for adults. While we give a lot of our content away for free, the work that we do here does not come for free. It costs us money. The $10 a month will go a long way in helping us to continue to produce top quality, faith-based content, all with a view towards spreading truth, ultimately for the salvation of souls. So if you want to support us, please consider signing up for premium at churchmilitant.com/go premium. That's churchmilitant.com/go premium. Thank you so much for your support. And Pope Benedict astutely notes that the problems can be traced all the way back to the beginning, after the fall of Adam and Eve. They disobey God, they eat of the forbidden fruit, and among the punishments that God lays upon Eve is this, from Genesis 3:16. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. There is so much depth in that one short verse. But this is what Pope Benedict says about fallen human relationships between men and women. It will be a relationship in which love will frequently be debased into pure self-seeking, in a relationship which ignores and kills love and replaces it with a yoke of domination of one sex over the other. Indeed, the story of humanity is continuously marked by this situation. How true that is. I mean, fundamentally, all the problems of human relationships trace back to this, the desire to dominate the other rather than to love the other in a self-sacrificial way. And this is why Our Lady is such a model, such an antidote to this, because she was the exact opposite of self-seeking. She was sacrifice, selflessness, and love. Again, we will get into all of that in just a bit. And so as I was saying, feminism's answer to women is not to find dignity and meaning in their roles as wife, as mother, as a genuinely feminine woman, but rather to try to imitate men by obtaining career, status, wealth, all of that. And the thing is, women who choose that path are never truly happy. I don't care what they might say to the public or to themselves to try to convince themselves they're happy. You're never fundamentally happy when you forsake marriage and family for these other things, because these other things ultimately are not really fundamentally fulfilling. They might be temporarily fulfilling, but not at the core of your soul. They are not. And I say this as someone who has had a career. I say this as someone who's had multiple higher degrees at Ivy League colleges, some of the best universities in the world, Oxford University, a master's degree in theology there. I got a law degree from Notre Dame Law School, all of this. And I've had careers, but hands down, the most fulfilling, wonderful, beautiful role that I've ever had is being a mother to my children. That brings me so much more joy than anything that I have ever done. And that's not even a competition. It's not even a question. I mean, it's like this compared to this. And this also highlights the problem of, for instance, women wanting to be priests. This is, again, This idea of, oh, well, I am not truly worthy. I'm not truly equal unless I can do exactly what men can do in the church, meaning I have to be a priest. Once again, a complete failure to understand who you are fundamentally as a woman. Your dignity and worth are not found in the outside things and achievements and accomplishments and things that you can do. It's who you are, how you love, and how you give back that love to those closest to you, your spouse, your children, but then also those around you as well. There are people out there who don't have a spouse, who don't have children. They could be nuns. Still a life of love, sacrificial, self-giving to the other. Why? Ultimately, to love them into heaven. Now, obviously, men have that duty as well, but I'm not focusing on men right now. I'm focusing specifically on women and recapturing authentic femininity. I want to take a look at this short clip from a secular TV show where there's a debate between a feminist and a woman who kind of highlights the problem with this idea of equality of the sexes.
I'd love for the feminists, please apply for the oil rigs. Please go do the hard jobs in society. They're open, they're hiring, because I don't think men or women are equal until we do the equal work. Go apply to be on the oil rigs, go be a plumber, go be an electrician, go be on the front lines of the military, and then we should have equal rights. But until feminists are willing to do that, I don't believe we should have the freedom without the responsibility.
Okay, well, I don't think that I'm physically built for that. You might be. You said you were a volleyball player, and so you've got more strength than I do.
I don't have more strength than the average man. If feminists really believed in equality, but you guys don't, I would love for you. There is an oil rig hiring. There is an engineering
I would actually love to see Ava Santana on an oil rig.
No, seriously. There is a building being built next to my building. Go do it, feminists.
So like I said, this phrase, equality of the sexes, it's very misleading. Of course, we're equal in worth and dignity in the eyes of God, but we're not equal in roles, we're not equal in abilities, and we shouldn't expect to be. Let's take a look also at a clip here about the woke Snow White film that's been redone with a modern twist. Once again, pushing this feminist narrative that somehow this paradigm is going to make women more fulfilled than the prior paradigm of home and family life.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
So here's my question. What is wrong with being saved by the prince? What's wrong with dreaming about true love? What's wrong? They treat it as a weakness, as if there's something wrong with that. We shouldn't be doing that. There's nothing wrong with it. This is what women desire. So what? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be saved by the prince. It's okay to admire a man's strength, his protective instincts. It's okay. It's okay to be weaker and more vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's quite beautiful. And the fact that these women scoff at it, look down on it, say, oh, this is weak. It shows their weakness and their fundamental inability to actually appreciate women and appreciate men as well. There was a video that I watched recently on Twitter, and it was really disturbing to me. I hope you're enjoying the show. The rest of the show is behind the paywall, so please go to churchmilitant.com to watch the rest. For those who are not premium subscribers, you can sign up at churchmilitant.com/go premium. See you there.